Mike Tomlin addressed Pittsburgh media on Tuesday as normal for Pittsburgh Steelers. And we got a lot to talk about with the offense and questions about the fourth down decisions slash play calls. Where does the weight fall on those fourth down failures and other failures within the offense? Joining me to talk about that will be Brian Batko of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Steelers beat writer. We're going to have a fun conversation about that, some elements of the defense, all right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can, as always, you can find this show on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Odyssey. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts with a positive comment, and you get a shout out at the end of the show. Like our video on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of that helps out the show here. Joining me today is a returning guest for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, my man, Brian Batko. Brian, it's good to see your face, man. How you been?
Doing well, Chris. Just got back from Green Bay late last night, Monday night. So it was a fun trip to Wisconsin, Lambeau Field. I'd never been to the Cheese State before, so that was all a new experience for me. And I had a good time, sandwiched around a little bit of an ugly game there for the Steelers.
It was a bit of an ugly game there, but you're right. You're absolutely right. Lambeau Field, one of the more historic fields in all sports, just, with the Packers' history and how long they've kept that stadium together. So that definitely had to be a really cool feeling. But let's dive into some of those struggles. Now, the Steelers' offense, we all noted how bad it is. But one thing that people get really frustrated with, and reasonably so, because it's been bad, has been the fourth down execution / play call. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are saying that the fourth downs are on the play calls and that the Steelers are living in their fears and that they won't allow Ben Roethlisberger to throw the ball down the field. And it's on, they're telling him to throw it short of the sticks. And it shows they haven't converted once on fourth down yet. They were 0-1 against the Raiders, 0-2 against the Bengals, and 0-2 against the Packers. And one consistent theme you saw with all of them was throwing short of the sticks. When we asked Mike Tomlin this at his press conference, one thing that he addressed when it came to throwing short of the sticks, he said, what if it was by design or not. He said there were other eligibles. He called them eligibles by meaning eligible receivers beyond the line to gain. He said he felt good about the play calls, but definitely didn't feel good about the execution. Brian, we'll get to the film of it in a sec, but what's your take on the result of these fourth down plays? Are they more on the play calls? Or are they more on Ben not, seeing the right guy?
I think it's more the latter. I think it's more on Ben because, generally, coaches, players in any sport at any level, when they throw out that execution word, it's kind of just a way to be deliberately vague. But I do think it falls more on the players usually when you use that. Otherwise, you'd be delving into the schematics, which Mike Tomlin has, taken that to task as well. It was when we talked to him last Tuesday, he said they had a 3-pronged plan for getting this thing back on track. Schematics was a part of that. But in this particular instance, here's what I don't understand. Matt Canada, I've heard people say he's in over his head, he's overmatched as an NFL offensive coordinator. In the big picture, that might prove to be true eventually. But on the micro level here with these fourth down calls with a 4th and 4, a guy who's been coaching and calling plays this long, albeit at a different level, do you think he just magically forgets how to draw routes past the sticks? Or what makes more sense, that he has just all of a sudden forgotten that if it's 4th and 4, you need 4 yards to move the chains, or your 39-year-old quarterback who is struggling for a variety of reasons, simply, either doesn't trust his accuracy in those moments and is trying to move the ball with the quick game as he does on the first 3 downs, and also presents no threat of a run with any sort of mobility. And that's taking away from everything the offense can do. That would be my question to analyze this, is which of those two things makes more sense?
That's a good point, because it's not like he's saying, hey, this is genius. We're going to run everyone short of the first down. They'll never see it coming. They'll back everyone off and prevent, and then we'll keep getting them, except it hasn't happened once. There's no way that's the call. And again, Brian, you and I talked about this off air. You look at the tape, the first fourth down attempt where they threw it to Najee immediately, just like they did against Cincinnati. You see on the replay, the first replay that they showed where it was behind Ben Roethlisberger and you could see the field from the end zone. Pat Freiermuth is standing looking at Ben Roethlisberger 8 yards downfield, well beyond the sticks, wide open without a single Packer around it. And, I've seen some people say, oh, well, the design of the play was immediately go to Najee. And I'm like, I don't think that they're in a position where they're telling Ben, hey, no matter what you see out there, you can't throw it to the open man if there's someone uncovered, because he was uncovered. No one even lined up over top Pat Freiermuth. It should have been a bang, like an easy read and throw, and they keep those chains moving. And then the one play that I will say was more difficult was the double crossers over the middle, where, yeah, that was tough. Those were man-beating routes. They were designed, and they ended up facing a cover 2 zone. But people who say there was no option there, Deontay Johnson ran the perfect double cover 2 zone beater down the sideline, where the only guys out by the sideline on that defense are the corner who has to stick to the flat and the safety who has to play deep. And he ran right in between them. Ben just didn't even look that way. He tried staring down the middle of the field and then eventually just threw it to Juju when he wasn't even close. That, to me, is what Mike Tomlin is talking about, the execution. He wouldn't say, man, Ben stinks. Like, he's not going to fry his quarterback. That's not what he does, and that's not what should happen there. But he's being honest. And in my recollection of how Tomlin, whenever there's a schematic problem, he'll talk about that problem. But if he doesn't say it, that means it wasn't a schematic problem. There were opportunities on the field.
Yeah, and I don't think he would want to fry his play caller either, especially a first-year offensive coordinator who he hired, promoted from within. However, I think that's why you're seeing them be kind of intentionally circuitous about all of these explanations, whether it's him, whether it's Canada, whether it's Ben Roethlisberger. Nobody wants to peel back the curtain too much, and maybe that is because it would be obvious where the blame lies. I suppose you could criticize Matt Canada for the play designs in some sense. Why is Harris even there in that spot, or Juju? Certainly, I mean, if he didn't make the right call against the zone coverage, that's probably on your OC more than anything, maybe. But any play, the only goal of the play is to scheme somebody open for at least a 4-yard gain if it's 4th and 4. As you mentioned, Chris, with looking back at the film, I mean, I think Canada did that part of it. And you got to have an option there for, if everybody in the defense does kind of play the sticks or backs over to the left side of the field or whatever, then maybe that's where the Najee Harris option comes in. And in no circumstance should it be an immediate snap, read, quick throw and do that, because, I mean, doesn't take a football genius to say that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that scenario.
No, you're right. And I believe you were there on Thursday, as I was, when we talked to Matt Canada and we asked questions about that 4th down play against Cincinnati. And he said there were guys in the end zone. Like that to me is his way of saying, look, I'm not trying to say that Ben made the dumb mistake of throwing it immediately to Najee, but I'm trying to tell you, I'm not the idiot here.
Yeah, and I think, Matt Canada, he's new to this particular job, but he's been doing this long enough and speaking to the media. I mean, his media obligations as the offensive coordinator at LSU or Pitt probably weren't nearly like this. But remember, his last year in college ball, he was the head coach at Maryland. So he's gotten a decent amount of practice at how to handle himself in those tough situations behind the mic. I kind of just have a feeling that morning before he came out to talk to us in the wake of the Bengals game, he just made up his mind and said, here's what I'm going to say. If people want to, my reasoning here, or say I'm quarterback under the bus, so be it. But I've got to at least kind of stick up to some degree here in this situation when I did, design a play that made more sense than it ended up looking like on the field.
Absolutely. We're not done talking about Ben. We got more to say about his relationship with Matt Canada and what's going on in this offense. But first, got to tell you guys about Get Upside. Hey, Steelers fans, this is Chris Carter with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about. And this means you too, Brian. It's called Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up their tank. Just download the free Get Upside app on their App Store or Google Play right now by using the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get an extra bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That means you can get up to 50 cents cash back on your first gallon or on your first fill up at the gas pump. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside by using the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get, again, 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back. And there's no catch. The cash back just gets added right to your account on the Get Upside app. And then whenever you're ready to cash out, you can do so to your bank account, PayPal, e-gift card, to Amazon, or any other brand. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Brian Batko of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I forgot to say this, Brian, when you were giving your last response there. We can tell that you're a professional that works for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette because you said circuitous and you were correct in your usage of it. Because I was like, oh, what? Okay, that's right. That's what he did it. And I was like, I would never be able to use that on air at any point in time. If I ever said that, it'd be because, like, wait a second, Google. All right.
The real question is, could I spell it? Could I spell it if I were trying to write it in a story right now? I mean, I know how to spell circuit, and I don't know if there's another I in there or what's going on with the suffix, but I guess I could take a shot at it. I think I at least pronounced it correctly. So, yeah, I mean, do we want to talk more about how the Steelers keep running out of gas on these fourth down plays here?
There it is. There you go. The gas.
And the upside they're missing on this one.
Oh, look at Brian helping me with the live reads. Thank you, sir. We always appreciate the puns.
In all seriousness, though, like, one other thing I'm going to say on this subject is, at the end of Mike Tomlin's press conference today, he was asked a question specifically about how Ben can sort of fix this for him. And, you know, Mike Tomlin started laughing and chuckling a little bit, saying that the only thing that can't be fixed is his mobility because he's not young Ben anymore and he can't run around. And, like, I don't know if every Steelers fan is going to look real kindly on the way Tomlin answered that, because it's a real problem. Like, it's not really a comical or humorous footnote in this thing. It's an aspect of offensive football that is, like, severely holding them back. And I would add that it's one thing that the fourth downs is a very specific area where if you're a quarterback who is zero threat to run to the chains, I mean, that takes a huge swath of what you can do away on those downs and distances. I mean, Tom Brady, we know he's 44. Right. So what's the excuse when he can find a way to scramble, get out of the pocket, and do it just enough? Aaron Rodgers, you know, they're ripping on him up in Green Bay because he doesn't move too well anymore. But
he ran for a touchdown.
That 4-yard touchdown run on fourth down, but, like, it shows you he's got wheels enough to make a defense think about it in those situations. So that's a real problem for Ben. It's not just kind of a laugh and throwaway thing right now.
No, I agree. And we all know it's funny for us because we cover it and we're kind of just like, he's right. Yeah. Even if you said 5 years ago, you knew Ben wasn't that mobile. He could escape a little better than he does now. But, like, one of my friends pointed out is, if you ever see Ben Roethlisberger trying to get a first down, he looks like he's yelling. He's like, because he's putting everything he can.
It's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. Like, the one that he got, I think it was against the Bengals, where he, like, pump faked 3 times to get the guy to stop in space, and then he was able to get the first. I'm like, man, that's impressive, but highly rare. But
yeah, he did have that 5-yard run. I guess I should give him a little bit of credit because he did put that on film. But yeah, it is. It's painful to watch him try to maneuver around the pocket, not just for, you know, trying to take off for a quarterback keeper, but even just to move his feet, get into position to maybe get a little better angle on a throw and help out his O-line in turn. So, yeah, it's not good right now for him and his pocket presence.
Absolutely. But speaking more about what's going on with the offense, one question has been asked. I saw Charlie Batch, former Steelers quarterback, you know, talking about this on Twitter, saying, hey, you know, I'm not sure how much freedom Ben has at the line of scrimmage to call audibles and to switch things up, because, you know, he would probably do that here or there or anywhere. And we asked Mike Tomlin about that in the press conference, and he says he has a good amount of freedom to do so. Now, he said there's specific situations that they say, hey, this is the play and this is what you're going to get from the defense, and this is what we want you to do, and that's where the Steelers are trying to get the focus on. But what is your take on the assumption, or the proposition that Ben Roethlisberger is limited and doesn't have the freedom to change something at the line of scrimmage that he might see, because this is just Matt Canada's offense and the Steelers refuse to let him do that?
I think that would be a wrinkle or a wrench in the discussion that does make me step back and say, do we need to shift where we're assigning the blame? At least you and I mean, there are people out there who think Ben's being, unjustly raked across the coals. I wouldn't agree with that, as I stated at the top of the show here. But if there were a situation where, for whatever reason, they're not putting him in the best position to succeed, they're limiting what he can do at the line, and essentially, demanding that he works himself into these bad situations, then I would question the plan and the schematics a little bit more. But I don't know that I buy that, because why would you do that? You want to win. Right. It wouldn't make any sense from a coaching or play calling standpoint. So that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me, especially with Ben as your quarterback. If in another universe where he decided to hang it up, or you moved on from him or whatever, and Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins was your quarterback, then maybe I could see that. But I think if you're committed to playing him the rest of this season, which from the sounds of Mike Tomlin today sure sounds like they are, then why wouldn't you give him every tool at his disposal, especially as an 18th year vet who one of his strong suits should be reading defenses and manipulating people open if he needs to.
Right. And here's the thing, is that if you're, as we talked about at the opening of this segment, if you're extremely limited in your mobility, you have to be able to think your way through this game. Because if I can't force you to worry about me going left or right, then I have to make you worry about all the 5 different receiving threats that are available to me at all times. And if I'm not doing that properly, it's that much easier to stop me as a quarterback. And that's where Ben's at right now. And the thing is that even with that extremely limited mobility we're talking about there, or non-existent if you want to go that far, there are guys being left open by defenses, because not every defense can cover everybody all the time. Sure, there will be plays where it's like, you know what, that was just a really good defensive play. They had the right call, they locked up everybody, and the best thing to do there was throw it away. But that very rarely happens all throughout a game. And for the Steelers, I don't think it's happened often enough to say, hey, Ben, it's okay that you didn't see that guy. I think that's the biggest thing holding the Steelers back. Even the offensive line, who Mike Tomlin even said there were building blocks put there for what the Steelers did, especially in the ground game. He said, they made progress and they're hoping to build from that. The offensive line took a step forward in this game, and they have 2 rookies who weren't even drafted in the upper rounds of the NFL draft this year, along with kind of a makeshift group that they're still figuring out, with a backup at right tackle, really a third stringer at right tackle. And they took steps forward while Ben still kind of doesn't feel comfortable in the offense. That, to me, is what's really alarming right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not just the 2 rookies anymore either. With Chukso Okorafor out, they had to wake up Joe Haeg last week. They had to take him out of his packaging, dust him off, and get him in there. So, that's another part of it. Like, I really don't want to hear this refrain that Ben's not getting enough help from people. Like, I know that the O-line hasn't been a strength of this team, really. Right. Although, again, it's kind of interesting that Mike Tomlin went out of his way somewhat today to give them some praise, all things considered. And the receivers have been far from perfect. But what help is Ben giving people? I mean, until Sunday, when he finally dropped the dime for a touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson, that's what you need to do more of. Great throw, Ben. That looked like vintage Ben a little bit. But until that play, look at his 3 touchdown passes. One was a shovel pass to Pat Freiermuth. Okay. One was a swing left to Najee Harris, where Najee Harris did all the work for a 25-yard catch and score. And the other was a 5-yarder to Deontay Johnson, back left corner of the end zone in Buffalo, where it maybe should have been picked. The cornerback got a hand on it, and Johnson had to make a great play to adjust to it. So, like, Yeah, maybe he needs more help, but like, what help is he giving the rest of all the other units too? Would be how I would answer that criticism.
It's certainly a good question. He has not been a plus in really any of the games. I think the biggest thing that he did for the Buffalo win was that he didn't turn the ball over. I believe did he turn the ball over in the game? I can't remember if he did. I don't think he
No,
didn't
made a
put them.
couple of those throws late to
Yeah.
keep the clock going, and in absence of a run game, I mean that they really struggled on the
Mhm.
ground in that one. So I mean, yeah, that fourth quarter, I guess, against the Bills was maybe the sharpest he has looked all season. But even then, it wasn't like he was dropping the
Dimes.
ball through needles. Yeah, so.
No, no, I'm right with you there. And for the Steelers fans who are talking about, hey, what about just benching him? Mike Tomlin made it clear he's absolutely their guy. At this point, and that's me saying at this point. That's not Mike Tomlin. When he was there was no wavering in his response. Ben Roethlisberger is the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for those people who are screaming Dwayne Haskins, Mason Rudolph, or re-sign Devlin Hodges, there's a couple of those I see on Twitter. All those people that's not happening anytime soon. I think the
But
only
don't
way
you think
that
he
Ben's
had to say that?
yeah, oh, absolutely, he did. He did. I mean, you don't put doubt out there for everyone to
Otherwise,
see
this
to be
week
like,
would be even more dramatic and even
ooh,
crazier with a quarterback controversy. If he had said something like, "We're always
mhm.
evaluating," or something like that, I mean, that would have, this would have been into the stratosphere more than just
Ooh.
us trying to parse his words, right?
That would have been, man, like ESPN's gonna send like 4 people with Brooke Pryor. Like and
Mm-hmm.
Didi's gonna have like an army of NFL network camera people that are like, oh, at every practice, like
Yep.
is Ben gonna start this week? We don't know. And so like that's absolutely what he had to do. But I also believe him because I think that they're like, listen, if we end up going to Mason and Mason sucks, what do we do? I think that's where their heads at right now, Brian, because they're like, if Josh Allen was in weight, if Trevor Lawrence was in weight, if Joe Burrow was in weight, if Lamar Jackson even was in weight, there might be a sense of like, hey, you know what, Ben, your hips messed up this week. Hey, take a week off. We go see what happens. Like there might be a way that they'll cover it because the Steelers are very good at at making sure they get the right messaging out. Usually, when it comes to trying to get their agenda done while not getting themselves flamed in the media and getting themselves flamed is that's not putting anything against the media, but we got to report what happens. And if Ben wasn't to start a game while he was healthy, we'd have to report that, and that would start a firestorm that just naturally. So I agree with you. He had to say that, but I do think he's being honest with it. But I do think also that there will come a point in this season that if this type of play continues, that I do think that there will be something said in a closed room where it's like we got a tougher decision to make.
To that point, Chris, are you a guy who believes in kind of the cosmic forces of the universe and
God.
just like symmetry in the world and things of that nature? Because if you are, I'll lay it out like this. So
Okay.
this week they've got the Broncos.
Yeah.
Unless there's something weird going on with this hip thing that came up today, which could go to your little tinfoil hat theory of they won't bench him for performance, but he might miss a game for injury, whatever. So that's if that doesn't keep him out this week, and say he goes out there and struggles again against Denver, the following week is against the Seattle Seahawks
Mm-hmm.
at home.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first NFL experience for Mason Rudolph when Ben
The
hurt his
Seahawks.
elbow 2 years ago? A game that
Whoa.
he came in and actually played pretty well. If you'll
Whoa.
recall,
He gave him a chance.
We were all writing rosy Mason Rudolph outlook stories. This is his time. He threw 2 touchdowns to, I think it was a guy named Vance McDonald,
It was.
if that
Vance
doesn't
McDonald had a
escape me.
great
But
fantasy weekend.
so he threw 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks. He winked at Jadeveon Clowney, who was
I
in
remember that.
Seattle then, South Carolina. Remember it's all rushing back. I don't know. I'm just a guy who has some sort of weird belief in karma, and maybe that would be the right spot to bring Mason Rudolph in for a little bit of a, go get him, man. You've done this before against this team.
Could
Just a
be.
theory,
Could
actually a
be.
hypothesis.
We normally have Tony Serino with his Tony tinfoil hat Tuesdays, where he literally has a tinfoil hat that he will put on and then give us these theories. He once prophesized that Mike Tomlin was going to be traded to Washington because their plane was in the airport. That was a great
That was 2
episode.
years ago, right?
That
I
was
think that was
2 years ago.
2019, maybe.
But that rumor went on this show for an entire year because of him. He thought it was going on all the way till they got Ron Rivera. But we got to talk a little bit about the defense too, Brian, because they're not exempt of being having some criticisms laid and questions asked about what's going on. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about Built Bar. If you want a healthy treat that tastes like a candy bar, Built Bar is the protein bar for you. It's the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team, and it comes in so many different flavors. Whether you want a free snack like raspberry, strawberry, or orange, or something different like salted caramel, cookies and cream, Rocky Road, or real cookie dough, you put it in the fridge. It's fire. It's awesome. I love this flavor. I got like 4 bars left, so I'm going to have to order some more soon. Anyways, get your Built Bars by going to Built.com right now. And the best thing is they range from 130 to 180 calories, but pack only 17 to 18 grams of protein, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. That's a tasty and healthy snack that'll help anyone keep up with their diet, and you can get your favorite flavor delivered right to your door by going to Built.com. And remember to use promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, LOCKED 15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And also don't forget, we got Bet Online. It's that time of the year again with all teams looking to get back on the gridiron. It's week 5. NFL season is well underway. We got top 10 matchups in college football, and you can bet on all of them at Bet Online. With a new updated site and interface, with even more odds, props, and contests, Bet Online continues to be the #1 source for betting on everything football. Head to your website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, locked on, all capital letters, all one word, to receive your bonus. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all favorite sports, from football to basketball to boxing, right down to horse racing. Don't wait to take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, where the game starts. And Brian, if we do back-to-back live reads, that means we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get to this defense. One thing that has been talked about is the lack of splash plays. They haven't been creating the turnovers that we've seen this defense create last year, especially during 2019 when they were just on fire. It seemed like every game they found a way to get a big play. How much of this, because Mike Tomlin also talked about this being situational, right? He talked about in his press conference Tuesday, he talked about, hey, we haven't been in the position to force people to take risks that we can take advantage of them. And to his point, they're true. Like I think after that first touchdown in the opening drive in the Packers game, that was the first time the Steelers had a lead in this season outside of when they got a blocked punt return for a touchdown in the fourth quarter against the Bills. If a team knows that you're an aggressive defense, they can be a lot more conservative and protect the football because they know that, hey, there's no pressure on us to put up points because we're either tied or we're ahead. And to me, that plays a big factor in what the defense is doing. But what are your thoughts? Are there things the defense could still be doing better to create those turnovers?
Yeah, I mean, the pass rush, like you look at it, I mean, we all know how well they played in Buffalo that first week, and that showed you the formula for the season. And then things quickly went south due to health. I mean, the Raiders' second half, how much pressure are you going to get with Jameer Jones rushing the passer half the time?
Mm-hmm.
The Bengals game in week 3, again, against a good quarterback. They played 4 good quarterbacks so far, just to point that out. I mean, and more than half the league has good quarterbacks at this point, so that's not really an excuse for them. But the Bengals game, Jameer Jones or Derek Tuska's rushing the passer half the time. So you're not going to generate a whole lot of pressure and force those quick throws from guys who play the game very smartly back there at that position. So I totally agree with what Mike Tomlin is saying. When you're not forcing teams into disadvantageous downs and distances, then that really does take the splash factor away from you. And yet they do have to be better and just kind of bearing down in some of these situations, especially on third downs. They were a pretty good group on those money downs a year ago, not so far here in 2021.
That's certainly the case right now. The Steelers defense not having the kind of success on situations right now. I think that when you look at it right now, they're giving up 45.5% on third downs. When you look at the season right now, at least that's according to the.
I believe they were under 40 last year.
So. Exactly, and that was the point made them so great, was that they got off the field on top of the turnovers. They said either we're forcing you to punt or you got to go for it on fourth down, and they haven't been able to do that as much. And yeah, sure, injuries do play a role in this, but they have to overcome them. I also wanted to get your thoughts on, because there's a lot of talk on certain playmakers not coming in with enough plays. What's your take on Minkah Fitzpatrick? For the last 2 years, I think you wouldn't be wrong to say he was the best safety in football in those years. He was first team All-Pro free safety, and he was lighting it up with interceptions. People were terrified to target him, but he hasn't had those game-changing plays, in games yet. He almost had an interception. He should have had a game-changing play on the blocked field goal, but still, what's your assessment on what's been going on with Minkah Fitzpatrick? Do you think this is a regression problem or just like a bad luck situation problem?
I think it's more of just bad luck. You face some speedsters in some of these games, and I didn't think he was as bad in week one as Pro Football Focus graded him out as, but
Right.
with the caveat that if Josh Allen hits on a couple of those deep balls, maybe we're singing a whole different tune about the Steelers defense and the outcome of that game. Could be sitting at 0-4 right now, but there's a lot of if Ben hits more of those throws Sunday against the Packers, same thing. So that's just part of playing in the NFL. With Minkah, you face Henry Ruggs 1 week. He's been a breakout guy so far this year for the Raiders. Just ran past Witherspoon, who I don't think maybe played that correctly. And then the next week, Jamar Chase getting behind everybody. He saw James Pierre and said, "I'm going on you." So you'd like to have your safety back there in the post. That's why you got to keep a lid on it, as Mike Tomlin keeps saying. But you'd like to see some more out of him. And I just think, TJ Watt, I know he's back healthy now, but he didn't look like his usual self to me. I don't know about you, but I think he kind of alluded to that after the game too, when I asked him if he was 100%, and he just kept saying he's good enough to play. So I don't think they're getting the usual TJ Watt, and that's something that could continue to be an issue for this defense if he doesn't return to form here.
Yeah, if these groin injuries are still going to be a problem, that's a very scary thing, because you just paid him all that money just so he could be this guy. And again, it's not doubting his effort or questioning and saying, "Oh, he just can't do it." If you're hurt, you're hurt. But if he's hurt, that's going to be a thing all season. That's going to be a problem, because he's a major part of this asset, the asset to this team right now, and you need him to be able to help you out there. And one thing I thought it was also interesting, he said he's trying to do too much. That's typically when a guy comes out of his role, and I think you saw it on a few of the run plays where he bit inside a little hard because he wanted to try and help and make up for the fact that the Steelers are behind are behind the 8 ball on the interior offensive line, with both Tyson Alulu and Stephon Tuitt out, and then Carlos Davis, even a backup's out. I get the want to do that, but when you take yourself out of what your scheme to do and what your role is in a defense, if you're Troy Polamalu, you get away with it. If you're James Harrison having a pick six in the Super Bowl, great. But if you're doing that and you're opening up an entire seam and it's not working, that's when you need to kind of check yourself. And I think that's where he was doing there. But to your point about Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's been targeted 15 times through 4 games, according to Pro Football Focus. He's allowed 10 of those passes to be catches for about 109 yards. He has a lot of touchdown. To me, I'm with you.
I kind of give him the credit for Terrell Edmonds' pick a couple weeks ago. I mean, he's the one who's batted that up in the air, so he basically made that turnover for them.
He did. And I also give credit to Devin Bush in that situation, because he ran with that man very well, to the point that Joe Burrow had to throw that ball up higher, and that allowed Minkah to get his hand on it. And that's how it bounced. It was kind of hey, these are the 2 first rounders in the middle of the field that you want changing the play. And then you get another first rounder in Terrell Edmonds, saying, "Oh, the ball's coming to me, I'll capitalize on that." And I do think that there's merit there. I've seen a lot of Devin Bush angst, or I guess doubting, if you will, from Steelers fans. They're saying, "Oh, he's not making enough splash plays." I'm like, yeah, but he is going out there and tackling. He is going out there and covering. He's still recovering, I think, from his injury. He missed a game because of a different injury. I don't think that Devin Bush is this problem child that some people make him out to be. I actually think he's doing well. Not 10th overall pick well, like you want him to be the supreme player that you'd get in there, but I think that he's coming along, because people got to remember he was a very young rookie when he came in, I believe at 21 years old when they drafted him, and then he missed his second season, and now he's back after an injury, kind of finding himself again.
Yeah, he might have even been 20 when they drafted him.
You're right. I think he was 20. You're right.
And yeah, he's not Devin White out there right now, but I'm not seeing guys really get behind him easily. He's not getting mossed by tight ends the way he did way too often for my liking as a rookie. So those are pluses for him. And, another thing, you made a great point that they're just really hurting up front right now. I mean, you almost take for granted how it starts up front with Cam Hayward, Tyson Alualu, and Stephon Tuitt. even with Tuitt out, Alualu and Hayward were just doing yeoman's work up there. I think Chris Wormley's been okay, but that third, that third guy up there when they're in base, I mean, it's no secret they're looking to fortify that because they just signed Eli Ankou to the practice squad, a guy with NFL experience. And I saw this morning, according to Field Yates of ESPN, they put in a waiver claim for Khalil Davis, Carlos Davis's twin brother. He is a nose tackle as well. They didn't get him, but clearly they're trying to bring in some new bodies to take a long look at on the defensive line because they're getting big boyed in the run game here.
They are, and you saw that in the Packers game. If they had limited Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon a little bit better, it maybe puts a little bit more pressure on Aaron Rodgers to make maybe a few more riskier throws that give them a chance to say, hey, pass rushers, go get him, or hey, secondary, make a play on the ball. But they did struggle against the run there. And you know what? Like you said, the defensive line cannot be overlooked. Whereas Devin Bush and Joe Schobert are really important in running and hitting over the middle of the field, those defensive linemen keep those guys clean so that they can make those reads and make those plays. And
Cam Hayward can't play every snap. I mean, he's been a beast, but he can't play every snap. Neither can Chris Wormley. So
it's tough. And Carlos Davis, to me, was the next guy in line, maybe even before Bugs. When you look at the position there, but I mean, Henry Mondo, I don't think he's had it at all. He's
overmatched.
He's overmatched. Heck of an athlete. Any big man that can run as fast as he does on special teams, like, I'm scared of you. Like, I would never want to have to, like, if I'm ever in like the Hunger Games or someplace where he has to run me down, I am dead. Like, he will catch me and kill me, and it is over.
I think he's too nice. I think Henry Mondo is one of the nicer guys on the team, at least from what I remember when we could go up and talk to everybody in the locker room.
Well, if he's nice, I guess he would let me live. But he needs to be not nice on the football field, and I think that's
True.
That's the problem there. He hasn't been a killer in the defensive line, but that is certainly a thing. We will keep an eye on all of those types of things, as Brian Batko does with his great work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Brian, thanks so much for being here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, see my Twitter handle down there, just my name, at post-gazette.com. We've got a newsletter on Wednesday mornings you can sign up for email, my mailbag on Thursdays, and my chats every Monday. So yeah, come check us out. We've got a podcast over there as well, Ray Fittipaldo and myself.
Yes, they do, and it's a fun one. Do check it out. They do a great job over there at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Brian, thank you so much. I'm Chris Carter, your host here. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Thanks to all those who support the show by subscribing to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Odyssey, as well as YouTube. Remember to like this video on YouTube, subscribe to us, and share it with your friends. It always helps out here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We got Crossover Thursday. My man Cody from Locked On Broncos is coming back. If you've ever listened to Cody, you know he sounds exactly like Adam Schefter. So it's going to sound like I'm talking to Adam Schefter all show on Thursday. You want to listen to that right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.